you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. Pierre, before we, first off, I want to tell everybody we've got a great guest coming on shortly. Paul Dupont of the Boston Globe, Hall of Fame writer, will be joining us to talk some Boston Bruins. Where will they go? Are they going to gear up for a playoff run? Or are they going to gear up for a retool? We'll talk to Kevin about that in a bit. But Pierre, as we were getting off, we were talking about how many games, this was yesterday, as our show was winding down, how many games Connor McDavid would get for suspension for his cross-check. And it came out right after we got off. He ends up getting 3 games, as did Tyler Myers. As we said in text with each other, I think they nailed it. I think they needed to not make an example of him, but make an example in the terms that nobody's above the law. We got to play it fair here. And yet there's a lot of bad feedback right now towards this decision, Pierre, where a lot of fans and some media, specifically the ones in Edmonton, are really saying that, well, you're not protecting the Stars if you do this, and that's not fair. Look at all he has to deal with. So what's your take on that response?
I had the good fortune of working with a lot of star players, whether it was Mario Lemieux, Joe Mullen, Ron Francis, Mark Recchi, Jaromir Jagr, Brian Trottier, Paul Coffey, Larry Murphy. I can go down the line if you want and keep going. None of them cross-checked anybody in the face. And they were playing in a way more violent NHL. Way more violent. Way more. Yeah. Here's what I would say. No disrespect meant to anybody. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I'm going to throw at you what I threw at you yesterday. And I hope people will hear it without bias in their opinion or their thought. If that's Connor Garland turning around and cross-checking Connor McDavid for the same thing.
Yep. How
many games do you think you're going to want him to get? If you're on Connor McDavid's side, how many games do you want Connor Garland to get?
At least what McDavid got. Like, you want him to get.
They're going to say they want 20 games. They're not going to say.
Well, I've seen a lot of that, but you asked me. I'm just being reasonable. But
I know. Well, you're the voice of reason on this, and I said 2. I said yesterday 2, and the reason why I said 2 yesterday is because I looked at the schedule. Edmonton's next 6 games are in Edmonton. They play Washington, and then they play Vancouver. That's the second of 6 straight at home. They don't want him playing against Vancouver, just like the league didn't want Tyler Myers to play in Edmonton, in that game. So he got 3. The other guy got 3. I get it. I know people don't get paid to do this stuff. I'm just telling you, the league looked at that. They did. They don't want a Pier 6 maniac brawl in Edmonton coming up. They just don't want that. And they might get it, but they want to make sure that those 2 guys aren't involved.
Yeah. Yeah. They did it right. I mean, this is what you got to do. And I don't disagree that he takes physical abuse. I mean, and by the way, I sent you that thing. It was that play we were talking about last year in the playoffs. Somebody tweeted that, said, look at this. With Zadorov, and I forget who the other guy was cross-checking him.
Carson Soucy,
that's right. And, that's fine. Nobody's arguing that he's targeted. We get that. But, you just referenced a different era of hockey, Pierre, and as you pointed out, with that era of hockey, it was a lot more physical. Those guys like Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux, the stars of the league, took a lot more abuse then than they take now. So, I mean, all things considered, I don't get the outrage right now. I don't get this accusation that they're not protecting the Stars. Well, let me ask you this, Pierre, right? And going further to the theme you're talking about too. So I would say to those people, okay, so they're just supposed to protect the Stars and not the other players? Is there safety?
I've always had that argument. I think if you're going to protect one core group of players, you're going to protect all players.
Exactly.
Some guys are tougher than other guys. Mm-hmm. Some guys are more skilled than other guys. Some guys are better checkers than so what do you want to do? You want to protect the Stars one night, the checkers the next night, the shot blocker the next? No, they're all the same.
Yep.
No. Do people buy tickets to watch the shot blockers? No, they don't.
I get it.
I'm going to siege you that right now.
Yeah.
Like, you're talking about one of the preeminent players in the history of the league. Connor McDavid is one of the best players in the history of the league. When his career is all said and done, he will be up there with the pantheon of great players. He will be there with Gretzky, with Howe, with Lemieux, with Beliveau. I don't know if he's going to win a Stanley Cup or not. I have no idea. He might win 5. He might win 0. We don't
a whole
know.
Other topic.
we don't know. We don't know. But individually, he's as good as there ever will be.
Yep. I'm with you on that. Well, so 3 games to him, 3 games to Myers. I think the Oilers will be okay. At least they've got Leon Draisaitl. They've got depth up front. They'll be okay. But let's look back at the games last night, Pierre. I know you were focused on the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I noticed too, like we were talking, and you said to me, I'm a little worried about the Lightning right now. Well, they go into Toronto and they lose 5-3. What did you see there that maybe made you worry a bit more?
Not that much, actually.
Okay.
They had chances. Joseph Wall made some really good saves in that game. They didn't have an answer for Marner, Nyes, and Matthews. Those guys ran the show last night. They were really impressive. Toronto's a good team. I mean, I got to tell you, Jimmy, I've been telling you for a while. I think if they make the right moves, and Brad Treliving's done a lot of good things so far, whether it's hiring Berube, whether it's bringing in Oliver Ekman-Larsson, whether it's bringing in Christopher Tanev, whether it's giving Simon Benoit a little bit more of an opportunity, whether it's putting Bobby McMahon up higher in the lineup, whether it's signing Steve Lorentz. But the number one thing is getting Anthony Stolarz. Like, you go look at all the things that he did. Mm-hmm. I give Treliving a ton of credit, and he deserves it. He does. Yep. This isn't just like, oh, yeah, we'll pat the guy in the back because the team's record's good. A lot of why the team's record's good is because of the stuff that he did.
Yes.
And I would say this. They're 2 players away from being the favorite to win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah,
they're a depth centerman away and an elite puck-moving defenseman away. If they get both those guys and everybody else stays healthy and Tavares comes back and Stolarz comes back, they're winning the Stanley Cup. I'm telling you, they're going to win the Stanley Cup.
Yep. And I'm like you too. I look at Treliving and the job he did in the offseason, Pierre, and it's very much like a Tom Fitzgerald in New Jersey, or maybe Chris Patrick in Washington, where they were very strategic acquisitions or signings to fill specific roles or specific holes that they had. It wasn't like, okay, let's go out there and get the most superstars we can get or get the most talent. They needed to go. They needed to fit right into their rosters, and they did that. They accomplished that, all 3 of those GMs. And as you were saying to me just now on the phone about an hour ago or 2 hours ago when we were talking, it gives the coaches, and in this case, Berube, it gives him the ability to kind of mix and match and rotate guys in and out of different positions in the lineup and move them up and down and fill certain roles against certain teams and get better matchups. So that's what I love about the job that Treliving did.
Yeah, we agree. He's done a tremendous job. I see all hats off to him and their scouts. And there was some fluctuation. They lost some scouts. Pittsburgh took some of their guys. They lost some different people. Some guys retired. Some guys moved on. But Brad did a good job. Like, he knew Tanev better than anybody. He had Tanev in Calgary, so he knew him. He knew the guy. He knew the guy better than anybody. He had Oliver Ekman-Larsson in Arizona. He knew him better than anybody. So, I mean, insider trading helps a lot too. It makes a difference. It makes a big difference. He had nothing to do with signing Bobby McMahon. It wasn't hard to sign Pacioretty. Benoit was a guy they probably all saw play in the Quebec Major Junior League, and for whatever reason, Anaheim didn't want him. But they've done a lot of good stuff. And Stolarz was a big signing to me. And I told you that in the summer.
I said it was one of the biggest.
It was one of the biggest ones in the summer, and it has been.
Yep, so. I agree. Pierre, let me ask you something too, just when we're talking about rosters here and kind of mixing and matching and figuring out who fits where. As teams get closer to the trade deadline, do the GM and the coach strategically start to try different pairings or different lines to maybe really reveal exactly what they need heading into the dedeadline? Do those conversations happen?
Yeah, 100%. I don't think they try to tip their hand. So let's just say you're in the top 3 in the Atlantic. Let's just say you're one of the top. You're not tipping your hand every night. You're going to move guys around, but internally, you know. Hopefully you don't work for an organization where lots of people leak.
Yeah.
Okay?
Like that, yep.
But I'll say that this is probably the tightest ship in Toronto in a long time. I haven't seen any leaks out of Toronto. And that's driving those insiders nuts, by the way, because they can't get any some really good intel out of Toronto. You don't see a lot of leakage in Toronto.
Especially in that market, too. You know,
Yeah, I give the management and the coaches and the scouts a lot of credit. You're not seeing a lot of leakage there. So that's good. So I don't, in terms of Toronto, they'll try different stuff, but they're not. Everybody in the league knows Nyes, Matthew, and Marner is an elite line.
Yeah.
You know, I would say this: they're 2 players away to really be a team that they stay healthy. Third line center. I don't like to number the lines, but a really good depth center and a very high-end puck-moving defenseman. They get those 2 things going into the deadline in the second part, you know, of the season, which we're in now, but after the 4 Nations, they're really in good shape. They're really good shape. Austin Matthews at another level. Mitchell Marner's at another level. Like, stop talking about his contract. Just let him play.
Yeah. He's done a great job.
The contract going to take care of itself.
Yeah.
Let's just let him go play.
Yeah.
Like, I'm telling you, this he's been phenomenal. I said it 2 weeks ago on a bunch of different shows, and people are kind of like snickering. Hey, he's lost it. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I said he should be in the MVP discussion. And he should be. Look at what that guy's done this year. I'm just telling you, like, be fair. Be fair. Remember when the fans were getting after him? Well, I like the way our team played. We just missed a couple things. They were all ripping him apart.
Yep.
Now they love him. Like 5 days later, you're the best, Mitchell. We love you. This and that. Be fair to the guy. He's been phenomenal.
Yeah, I agree. People need to let go. I see it here too. I've always talked to you about Pasternak. They get these narratives, Pierre, on players, and they don't let go of them even when the player proves the narrative wrong, because they don't want to admit that they were wrong for jumping onto that narrative. And it's so frustrating, you know?
It is. It's really frustrating.
Like,
you know,
we're watching a game with you. You got to, what's happening is happening. You can't change that. Just admit you were wrong and move on. That's it.
Sometimes guys have bad games.
Yeah.
You know, and then sometimes you guys have bad 2 weeks.
Yep.
There's a lot of stuff going on in there. You know, wife might have had a baby. Father might be sick. Mother may have, you know, all this crazy stuff that happens in real life. These guys are not machines. They're humans. Stuff happens.
I see in a chat room here, Gregory Debo saying if Marner isn't signed at the deadline, he 100% has to be traded. You can't let that asset become nothing. They're not trading him, Gregory. I'm sorry to tell you. Like, they're going for the top, like Pierre just said. They're not trading.
That's Gregory's opinion. I respect it, but I would tell you, they're not trading him.
No, that's not going to happen. You know, this isn't just a middle 6 forward hidden free agency. This is Mitch Marner. I mean, he's a huge part of what they want to do in the playoffs.
So what you do, you take him out of that lineup. I'm just telling you, you lose a top line because they have no they can say Willie Nylander all they want. This Nylander and Matthews, there's just on the ice. And I'm talking on the ice. There's just not that chemistry that you have with Marner. Here's my thing to Leaf fans. Go to any Leaf game if you're there, but go there for the warm-up. And just watch the warm-up and watch what 16 and 34 do the entire warm-up. They are on their own little island, those 2 guys. And it is unbelievable. Watch how many times plays happen during the course of the game that look just like the warm-up. It's amazing to watch them. So I don't think Marner's going anywhere.
Okay, 1 second, too. Kevin Paul Dupont just texted me right now. He's having issues getting on. 1 second. Guys, if you could just give me that phone number to call in, we can put them in via phone. Pierre, the one thing, too, another thing I brought up to you earlier while we're waiting for Kevin here that I want to talk about here was Bruce Cassidy post-game last night.
You told me that. Yeah, told me that before. Yep.
Yeah, and so he didn't rip him by any means, but he was blunt. He said this, you know, X, Y, and Z is what's going on right now, and we got to stop. We got to get it together. We got to correct everything right now before it gets out of hand. It's reached that point where we're kind of at the precipice of it becoming a slump.
I remember him telling one Jimmy Murphy that on our show probably about 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago.
He was worried about this time of year. He specifically said those dog days, you got to be careful. Then they're looking ahead.
Well, they got all those guys going to the Four Nations.
Yep.
They got more guys than anybody else going to the Four Nations. I watched their game with St. Louis yesterday. I was telling you about it as I was watching it. I was texting you. I could see what's going on. They got some guys that just aren't paying attention to little things. And then Pietrangelo got hurt blocking a shot. I don't think that went over real well.
Yeah.
I don't think that went over really well. So,
yeah. So it's interesting how he saw that coming. And now, he's like, okay, it's here and I got to correct this. So we'll see if they can get out. One of the things he did say too, I don't have the exact stats in front of me, but he said giving up the first goal is really killing them. Apparently they've been doing that too much.
Playing for me. I heard Dave Gosher talk about that on the broadcast with Shane Knighty. Talk about they keep falling behind all the time, and those guys are right about that. 100% right about that.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. And then the other game I brought up to you too, I was a little surprised at the score, and I was off on my pick, but good credit to the Pittsburgh Penguins going into LA and beating the Kings 5-1, Pierre.
Well, wait to see Kevin Hayes' first goal. It was spectacular. Kevin was bringing back days when I saw him at the rink at Noble and Greenout when he was playing in the Prep School League. That was an unbelievable goal by Kevin. And then, Grzelcyk launches one and Sid bats it out of the air, vintage Crosby. And David Riddick's like, you got to be kidding. Here we go again. And you could just see Pittsburgh was ready to go. And I feel bad. LA in their last 5 games, Jimmy, nobody's talked about this. I know I brought it up to you. LA in their last 5 games has only won once. They've lost 4. They got no loser points in those 4 games they lost. LA's starting to come back to the pack a little bit, Jimmy. They better look. I think they're one of those rear view mirrors. Objects appear a lot closer than they seem.
Well said.
I think they're in a little bit of trouble. They're going to have to pay attention to that.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens with that. But another team that's finding themselves in a lot of trouble this season is the Boston Bruins. And joining us on the phone line right now to talk about the Bruins is Hall of Fame writer Paul Dupont from the Boston Globe. Dupes, how you doing, my friend?
Doing great, James. Good to be with you. Hello, Pierre.
Kevin, great to talk to you. I love having you on.
Thanks. Great to be with you.
How's everything going? How's life outside the rink before we talk about at the rink?
Yeah, good. A little bit of snow, as you know, down here.
Yeah.
First of the year, and it's been cold, but that's all right. Hockey weather. That's okay.
Kevin's getting ready for the big Beanpot Showdown, BU versus Northeastern tonight at the Garden for the women. Big showdown tonight.
Also known as the BU Cup.
That is true. That is true, man. They've won it so many times. All right, Kevin, because there's so much to talk about when it comes to the Boston Bruins. Let's get right into it. What was the first thing that went through your head? Now, I don't know if you were there when he said it in that scrum, but when Cam Neely said the words retool, what was the first thing that came through your head? Were you stunned?
No, not stunned, because it's someone has to recognize the reality here, and that was the first kind of indication that they know that it's. I'm not going to go out and say it's a bad team, but it's mediocre, and they didn't get, as you well know, they didn't get the pop from the free agents that they thought. I've been waiting to see it. Now we're more than halfway through the season. I guess it's just not going to be there for Zadorov and Lindholm, and that's a whole lot of money spent. And that was the retool. You set your roster on July 1st. They set it, and the 2 guys who are going to be the follow through from a whole lot of stuff here, but mostly Lindholm with Krejci and Bergeron's retirement, failure to kind of back and fill, be it by the draft or by trade. They took their shot, and right now, unless there's another penny to fall here, guys, I just don't see that they're going to do it.
Yeah.
You just touched on something so important. Their miscalculation on the 2 free agents out of Vancouver and Lindholm and Zadorov. Kevin, whose fault is that? Who misread those 2? Because I can tell you very comfortably, I didn't like those signings. I said it on the air. Yep. I said they miscalculated on both these guys. I'm just curious. I know how plugged in you are. Is somebody making a misread that led to this internally?
I wish I had that answer for you. I don't. But typically they have not done well in free agency, historically, I should say. Backus was a failure. Bolesky was a failure. So they've taken a number of shots here in the Sweeney Neely regime, and they haven't paid off. They've done well at deadline deals. Now, obviously, they made those deals. They didn't win the cup, but I can't fault them for the deals they made over the years. But the free agency, hand in hand with big misses on the draft. They haven't been in prime position, but you've got to do better than they've done. They've got the free agent signing out of college, Merkeloff. Lizell is one of their higher picks, one of their few first-round picks. Doesn't look like he's coming. So all in all, they've not done well in the front office. And if I have real questions whether Charlie Jacobs knows whether it's puffed or stuffed, but ultimately he's going to have to make the decision here whether he continues to ride with Neely and Sweeney, or there's a fundamental change in the front office.
Yeah, I'm with you on that for sure. Going back to, let's say, like I said to Pierre, we were talking about Bergeron and Krejci, and obviously how much that's hurt them to lose them. But going back to the years leading into their retirement, so let's just start at like 2021. That weird lockout. That weird COVID season. We could all see it, and I'm sure they could too, that the writing on the wall was that the end's coming soon. Now, I know these guys were still playing at peak performance, but you still knew that Father Time was going to catch up. And it didn't seem like that. And maybe there was behind the scenes and they just missed, and we don't know it and we never will. But from the outside, Kevin, and I remember saying it to a lot of people, it didn't seem like there was an urgency to start to rebuild up the middle, whether it was through drafting or signing or trading. Did you notice that at the time too? And now, when you look back, say, wow, yeah, they might have missed on that too.
Well, it's easy in hindsight. That's the game we play, self-included. I went over this past Sunday, that teams get in these, if you will, binds with, they had some very key players here for a long time. Didn't win the cup with them. Won it with Bergeron, of course, Bergeron and Krejci. But as those guys aged out and they kept chasing the cup, as that's the industry, that's what they're supposed to do, they should have been making the hard decisions whether to keep those guys or trade them. And the classic case of this, and Pierre, you saw it day to day, was Islanders after they won those 4 cups. They kept all those guys on the payroll, and they all aged out, and they got nothing for them. All they got, either they retired outright or they went by waivers, guys like Clark Gillies, Butch Goring to here. So that's what happens to teams. They get core players. That's what you want. Team identity, key players. It's very hard to decide to trade them. In many cases now, contrary to 40 years ago, now typically all those deals are no trade or no moves. So what you have to do, if you can't trade them, if you can't do it that way, you've got to do it by free agency or you've got to do it by draft. They haven't done either here.
Yep.
Well, guess who's catching up to them? The Pittsburgh Penguins. They've missed the playoffs the last 2 years, and they're going down the same road as Boston. Crosby's not getting any younger. Malkin's not getting any younger. Letang's not getting any younger. Carlson was a reckless addition by a new management team, and they're not deep enough in goal. They got issues. I'm just telling you, it's going to happen there. I just want to stand up and step up for what Kevin just said. I'll never forget this meeting that I had with the late, great Bill Torrey. We were talking about different things in hockey, and I said, any regrets? He said, I still love those guys to this day. I was way too loyal to my core players, and that's why we're in the situation we're in with the Islanders. He told me that right to my face. So Kevin nailed that spot on.
There you go.
Late, great Bill Torrey told me that right to my face. Kev, is there anything you're seeing in the league right now that you say, I really like that, or, oh, man, I think that's so bad?
I've been impressed, and I don't see them day to day, but I've been impressed with what the Canadiens are doing, and I'm happy about that. especially from the vantage point of Boston. To have a real rivalry rekindled with them, I think would be great. I don't know if that's the kind of the level you're looking at.
Yeah, that's spot on, because that's where I was kind of hope you were going to go. I think Montreal is one of the best stories in the league.
Yep.
Yeah. Especially Hudson, and you guys had Scotty. I thought that was terrific last week. Scotty's comments about Hudson.
Yeah, he's good.
I saw San Jose here yesterday.
Yep.
I wanted to see more from those two kids, Smith and Celebrini. But again, it's a bad team. It's going to take, I don't know, pick your term here, 2 years, 3 years really to build it out.
Yep.
It takes a lot of patience from management. Takes a lot of patience from the fan base. But they look like legit players. That's good. We get so the shiny new toy is always so exciting in this league, and true, I guess, throughout sports.
Yeah.
But look at Bedard, right? That franchise has not had the bump that they wanted. And I thought a number of those free agent additions as add-ons, and to kind of beef up the product around them, I thought by and large they were smart, but they haven't worked.
It's true.
Consequently, a kid like Bedard, who really should shine, is not. And I know it's already frustrating for the fan base.
Hey, Jimmy, just to back Kevin up on that too, you think about when Taylor Hall got drafted by Edmonton, and look at all the lost years. I think it's 11 without playoffs. That's unbelievable. Like, that was supposed to be. Is it Tyler or is it Taylor? And they took Taylor, and Boston took Tyler. The rest is history.
Yep.
It never worked in Edmonton. It never worked.
Yeah. And ironically, they're teammates now.
Then he goes to New Jersey. He goes to New Jersey, and he's the MVP.
He becomes the MVP of the league.
Yep.
You can't make it up.
I hear you with that.
And we saw that here. We saw that here with Thornton, right? Thornton goes to San Jose, and he's the MVP there.
Yeah.
So sometimes it is, often, not just sometimes, but often it's a matter of fit, where the organization is in its arc. All these teams have their highs and lows. It's also, and this was true here with Joe, expecting too much too soon, no matter how talented they are. And that might be what's happening in Chicago too with Bedard. It's again, yes, they come in the highly touted, obvious skill, but it takes so much more. As we've seen in Edmonton, they've got the greatest player in the world. They haven't won with him yet. Finally got to the final last year, and not just him, not just McDavid, but also with Draisaitl.
It's true.
Kev, back to the Bruins. So let's say they do go into a retool, I guess we'll call it, however they want to call it. But do you still think there's an appetite to build around Swayman, McAvoy, and Pastrnak, or could there be something there that changes in that core, or do you think that is sort of set in stone, or as close to set in stone as it can get right now as the core?
It's a great question. And to a degree, they have to, right? Because of the no trades. The no trades, no moves. That would be McAvoy, Pastrnak. Yeah. Right now, as we speak, they could trade Swayman, but man, they've waited forever to draft a franchise goaltender. I think they have one in Swayman. I'd be stunned if they traded him. That said, I was stunned when they traded Thornton. I was stunned when they traded Sagan. So, it could happen. The only fundamental change there, or big surprise, would be if McAvoy were to come to them and say, "I'd like to go home and play for the Rangers."
Yeah.
And I've got no hint of that. I've got no reason to think that's there. But that's the way these contracts are structured. He's not leaving unless he wants to leave, and you never know what's in a guy's head. I have been disappointed with the arc of his career to this point. Positioned, his next game will be his 500th. Positioned as the franchise defenseman, has not stepped into that role from an offensive standpoint. And we got spoiled here for a lot, not just a lot of years, but a lot of decades.
Yep.
From Orr to Park, Lee, all of
that Chara guy wasn't so bad either.
Yeah, it's incredible the reign of guys they had back there.
Yep.
You know, I drink from that fountain of, if you've got the franchise defenseman, and the franchise center, you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
In many ways, that's what you have to do it. That said, I think the strongest guy in there ends up being your franchise defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw that for 20 years here with Bork, and it wasn't enough.
No.
When you look back at some of the teams they did have and didn't get it done for various reasons, it's painful.
Yeah,
it's true. Sure. It's really true. Kevin, what's the best way to describe how Zdeno Chara played for the Boston Bruins?
Well, what I would say is, you can look at many facets of his game, but I would say his ability to shut down the back end for the 22, 24, 26, 28 minutes he was out there. And nobody's perfect, but boy, he was close to it in terms of size and reach, to have that long stick. To me, that was the basis of his career, which was, from on-ice performance. The whole other part of him was persona, presence in the room, setting culture in the room, all of that. You think you're buying some of that when you buy these free agents. You never know.
No.
But he had that in buckets, big buckets. And frankly, that's a very large part of why the franchise is where it is today in terms of its profile.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, it looks like that profile is sagging. But I think if as happened here over the course of 36 months, they lose either to retirement or moving on from them. They moved on from Chara. Rask retired.
Nope. Did we lose Kevin? Sounds like we might have lost him, Pierre.
Boy, those were such good words, though.
Yeah, he's spot on.
That was so good on Chara. That was fantastic.
What was interesting, what he just said too, Pierre, and it's something I've been thinking too a lot as I watch, this, I don't know if you want to call it decline. I don't know if that's kind of a mean way of saying it, but as things change, is that when Chara was here, he talked about, you can't always find that in certain free agents, when you bring them in. When Chara was here, Pierre, they seemed, I don't know if it was his recruiting or, his input or whatever, but they seemed to always be able to bring in those guys that would fit into that culture, that would play those roles they needed, that had that character. I just, look, call a spade right now. Lindholm and Zadorov have not fit in. They just haven't. And that's that. And it's nothing against them. It's just sometimes there's not a match there. You never know.
Kevin talked about that, the fit. I'm going to tell you Chara's story that I never told you. The Bruins traded Johnny Boychuk to the New York Islanders. Okay?
Yep.
I happened to be in Boston. I was in the hallway at the Garden. Wasn't the Garden, TD Bank. And Big Z came by. And I don't think it was a game day. I think it was just happened to be there the day before. And we sat back and we were talking. And Z said to me, he goes, this is unacceptable. What are we doing? We're taking a step back. This guy was perfect for the Boston Bruins, talking about Johnny Boychuk. I never saw Z that mad before, and I never saw him so mad since.
I remember you
and I was like, okay, no way.
Yeah. That was a tough one.
He was really angry because he was a culture guy.
Yeah.
And just what Paul Dupont said. Z was a culture guy, and he wanted guys that were believing in the culture.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot to that. Kevin's got his finger right on the pulse of this thing. That's why I love having him on.
Oh, he's great. He's
great. Just so good at it. He's so good at it.
I'm just texting.
There he is.
Back.
Oh, we got him back. There we are. Sorry about that, Kev.
I don't know where that went. That was,
Yeah. That's the internet. Who knows? The more technology, the harder it is for us old folks here. But and I'm including myself in that too. So don't worry. But we were just saying, Kev, you said something very poignant there when you're talking about just you hope when you make these signings that they can fit into that culture, and they come in and they're able to play those roles that the team envisions. since Chara's left, it's been harder to do that, right? I mean, I don't know how much input he had on acquisitions, signings, or trades, but I just feel like they worked a lot more when he was here.
Yeah, and when you have two guys that are really defining the culture as Chara did and Bergeron did, you could almost bring in anybody and think that whoever they're bringing in, they're going to add to the team and make them better. Now, what works against that theory is David Backes came in, fine guy, but in his case, his career was just too far down the road for him to be a significant player. I remember thinking as time was going on and Chara was here, if they could have gotten Subban in the back end and have Chara's influence on him, I think would be terrific. Doesn't mean it would have worked.
Yeah,
but
I would have bet on it working between Bergeron and Chara. I'm betting it would have worked.
That would have spiced up the rivalry, eh, guys? Wow, PK Subban on the Bruins.
And he's obviously more of a, lack of a better definition here, more of a free spirit than those two guys. But I think he would have been smart enough. One thing he's intelligent.
Yep.
For some of the on ice nonsense. I mean, he was by my eye a hell of an athlete.
Electrifying.
A performer who liked the light. And I think, with Chara there on the back end, kind of shaping him and tell him to cool it at times, I think that would have been exciting. Because Chara really was as much a coach as he was a player in terms of that sort of stuff. There was no nonsense in the room, and there isn't today. I'll give them that. I don't get a sense that there's any chaos or nonsense in this room. I think right now it's not a talented room. And let's be fair too, that at the moment they don't have McAvoy. By all looks of it, he's got a wrist injury, and they haven't had Lindholm. That's Hampus Lindholm, of course. Haven't had him in the back equation since early November. So those are two talented guys. I'm not saying they're the greatest. They're probably overpaid, but they're a better team when those two guys are in there.
Yeah.
One thing they haven't had all year, even when Charlie was healthy, for whatever this means in today's game, but they haven't had any goal scoring from the back end. They've had basically 48 games here. 3/4 of those games, they don't have a goal from a defenseman. And even more critical is they don't really have a threat from back there.
No.
The power play is, I think, 4 goals in the last 4 games. That's as hot as it's been. And of course, every team in the league would like 1 power play goal a night. That they'd be happy with that. But they've got too many nights here. There's no threat in the power play. And much of that, by my eye, is that there's no true quarterback that's ready to unload. And again, to go back as the old man here, we got spoiled in that department.
Yep.
Be it Orr, Park, Chara for a while on the point, Bork forever. That was such a part of the chemistry, especially in the old building with the smaller neutral zone. And I remember.
No, don't worry. Keep beating me up, Kevin. Jeez.
When teams go on the power play, I always make as I do my running notes in the game. I always make point of where are the shots, right? So the team going on the power play is ahead on shots at the moment, 7-6. Night after night here, in the power play, it's still 7-6. If they haven't been scored against shorthanded. Whereas, again, back in that old era, sounded like the dinosaur of the day here, but, I would put it down. They'd put 5-6 shots. They wouldn't necessarily score, but I'd look down at the end and they only played 2 minutes. They got 5 shots. They got 6 shots.
Yeah, that's a great point.
100% point. True. Spot on.
And again, it's changed, right? The lanes are closed. Teams are more savvy about how to kill. There's been the trend here, not trend, really, it's almost across the board in terms of attack with 4 forwards and only 1 point man. When I've got a power play that's going 0 for a month, I'd go back with 2 point men, two real bona fide defensemen, and try that approach. but they don't do that. It was really Cassidy was the first one to go to it here with 4 forwards, and Montgomery adopted it too. Sacco has, but absent a true power play quarterback, and Lorai's given a bit of a peak these days. I'd certainly try something new.
Yep.
Before we let you go, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, how good are the Toronto Maple Leafs in Kevin Paul Dupont's eyes?
They're better. I think they're much better because they address the back end. And again, it's a long season, 82 games, and Matthews in and out with the injury. Frankly, I think if he's in and he's healthy and operating, if anybody operates at 100% in this league in 82 games now, I think they can be a real contender. I know it's easy to always kiss them off because of 1967. It's been forever, but I think Tree Living's done a good job there of accentuating, the back end and putting, make it, because that has been, by my eye, it's been their Achilles heel forever.
Yeah.
Under the last regime, and why they weren't fit. I get it. They wanted to spend all the money on the high price spread up front, and what did it get them? It got them constantly shoot out in the first round.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This is such a gift to have Kevin on.
What was that, Dupes?
When you started that, when you went to that introduction, I thought for sure you were going to bring up Tommy McVie.
Oh no! That was the last thing I wanted to talk about.
Last thing we're gonna do, yeah,
we were gonna do, because I had the chance to be a player in one of the training camps that Tommy helped run in New Jersey way back in the early '80s when they moved from Colorado. He was one of the nicest men I ever met, Kev. I just got to tell you, and I know you knew him really well. I coached against him in the NHL. What are your thoughts about Tommy before we let you go?
Yeah, I mean, to call him a character just doesn't do it justice, right? He was such a, the ultimate hockey lifer in my feeling, in the best sense. Just loved being there all day, always around it, loved the people. He had the standard truckload of jokes that we all heard 3 times over, but that was okay.
He still laughed though.
Yeah, you're right. It was kind of, it got to the point you were laughing because you'd heard it and I do know in his long run here, he did piss them off down in Providence because he was coaching down there, and I'm sure he used this line in many other places. They were going poorly here, and it was, again, it's the AHL. It is what it is. His line was, we should let them in for free and charge the customers to get out. Like
hey, did you ever have a chance to meet the Duke, his wife?
Yes, a little. Yeah. In fact, she passed away when he was here, so I know he took that hard.
Yeah.
She was a legend. He was a legend on the circuit in terms of being there always for Tommy. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And was when taught figure skating, right? It was
100%.
Day and night, blade on ice for the two of them. So yeah, no, I was saddened to see that, and I'm sure again it's a league now of as they call it, the next shiny bauble for everybody. But Tommy was really invested in the game, invested in the people, could talk it day and night when people liked to talk it day and night, rather than open up the room and get 3 people in there for 2 minutes and we're all out the door. So it was a fine man in a fine time.
Cam Neely became pretty close with him too, Kev, right? They seem to have a really good relationship.
I don't. Yes, Cam did the release yesterday.
It was nice to be said there. Yep,
and said nice words, but I'd be hard pressed to find anybody. He was a bit bitter here because he was under the impression that when they let Sutter, because he was Sutter's wingman, Brian Sutter has coached for 3 years. Mm-hmm. He was I know he was disappointed that he didn't get the gig after Brian.
Yeah,
but again, there's no knowing, often no knowing how those bits of chemistry work.
Yep. Yeah. He was a classic for sure. Well, Kev, we appreciate you taking the time here.
You're so good, Kevin. Thank you.
Oh, it's always my pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for
Kevin.
the note in the Sunday notes. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, pal. We'll talk to you down the road, guys.
There's Kevin Paul Dupont joining us here on the. Wow, that was
Jimmy,
amazing. Huh?
Jimmy, he's just. Again, you get to know people over the course of a long time in the league, and he's always been at the forefront of doing it right.
Yep.
You don't always have to agree with what he wrote.
No.
But he wrote what he believed.
And he backs it up.
And that's what I mean. He didn't take pot shots. Like, he backed it up. Here's why I don't like this, or here's why I like it.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't just like, this guy stinks and there's nothing else there.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I asked him about Toronto. Because it's what we talked about at the start of the show. Like, I want to hear what other people have to say besides you and I.
Yeah. And, you know, obviously, and I was there with him, but I mean, he's covered so many Bruins Leafs series over the last, 8 years or so. I think he can tell, okay, this team's for real now. Like, there's something different about them, and they've got it.
I did all those series, by the way. Whatever they played over the last 16 years, I did all of them.
Yep.
And I can just tell you, this is a way different Toronto team. Way different Toronto.
They're definitely more built for the playoffs. You know, too, he also he laid off you today. No forever 500s. I was waiting.
He's feeling sorry for me. He knows I'm freezing up here in the Great White North.
Speaking of that wonderful franchise that does not exist anymore, the Hartford Whalers, I will be down in their state, Connecticut, celebrating Connecticut hockey on Friday at CT Ice. We're broadcasting live from Sacred Heart, from the Martone family. Martoni, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
Yeah, the Martoni Family Arena. Really looking forward to seeing that place. I've heard nothing but rave reviews, and all 4 Division I schools from Connecticut will be there playing in a tournament with a variety of charities. They're going to have a live auction, silent auction, like I told you yesterday. You can go to here. I'll pull it up again for you right now. If you go to on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at CT Hockey FDN. That's the Connecticut Hockey Foundation handle, at CT Hockey FDN. All the details are there. They've got some pictures of the prizes they have in the auction. So check it out, and I'll be broadcasting live there. Pierre will be up at UMass. We're going to have some great live guests come on. You know who might be joining us, Pierre, because he's over there doing some reconnaissance for the Friendship 4 next year, is our good friend Robert Fitzpatrick from the Belfast Giants.
Robert is making his way over not once but twice. I know he's going to be at your neck of the woods. And then I believe in March, he's also coming back with Steve Thornton, who is obviously the general manager of the Belfast Giants. And so I know I will be seeing them in March, but maybe I'll see them before that.
Looking forward to catching up.
Yeah. Well, we're going back. We already made our commitment.
Oh, yeah.
You and I are both going back
next year. And it's Miami of Ohio, Union, Quinnipiac, and Sacred Heart will be at the men's one next year. So obviously those 2 schools will be playing in this CT Ice tournament. So it's a good chance for Robert to come over and see that. All right. And let me tell you also, you're mentioning about going on the road and doing some fun stuff. Pierre, we're going to be on the road a lot in February 3rd and 10th for the Bean Pot at West End Johnny's from 3 to 4 p.m. each day. We'll be broadcasting live. It's at 138 Portland Street in Boston, right across from the Garden. It's about a 5-minute walk, not even, to get over there. So if you're attending the Bean Pot, come on over. Or as Kevin Paul Dupont aptly called it, the BU Cup. Come on over. It's so true, man. Remember that rain? I think they won it something like 10 times in a row. I'll have to go back and check. But we'll be down there for the Bean Pot, and we will also be there for the week when the Four Nations face-off comes to Boston for the semifinals and the final. And those broadcasts will be 6 to 7 p.m. before those games at TD Garden. And in between that, we'll be up in Montreal for the Four Nations face-off as well, for 3 dates there at McLean's Public House up on 1420 Peel Street in Montreal. That's Upper Peel Street, not lower. There's another McLean's, the older one, down on Lower McLean's. You want to go to the Upper Peel Street one, and we will be there broadcasting 6 to 7 before the games up there. I want to thank Sam Adams and Boston Beer Company for getting behind the West End Johnny shows, and also Jägermeister, Pierre, will be joining the party up at McLean's Public House. I was just informed. So
thank you very much to all of our sponsors. We're grateful. We're not going to let you down, and we're really, really appreciative of your support of the eye test. Very appreciative.
And one thing, and I will promote Jägermeister as much as they like, but Pierre, I will not be doing any Jaeger bombs. Their favorite drink has never mixed well with Mr. Jimmy Murphy, so there will be none of that.
I guess I better help you out.
Yeah, you might, but I think you'll be after the show. You'll be having one of your medicine, as we call it, the medicine, and they pour a heck of a Guinness at McLean's Public House. I'll tell you that, Pierre.
It's hard not to enjoy Guinness. I apologize. You saw it in Ireland. All good.
Exactly. And for we'll be doing a lot of traveling, but for those that are traveling and moving right now, you want to check out TCS Customs and Logistics. Unlock the full potential of your shipping operation with TCS Customs and Logistics. From around the corner to around the world, flatbeds to air freight, custom clearance to drawback consulting. TCS is a one-stop shop for all things transport, moving pieces and delivering a peace of mind. For no obligation customs or freight quote, contact Sick Podcast at shiptcs.com. Again, that's Sick Podcast at shiptcs.com. And of course, our other sponsor is Betway. You can go right now. They're still running that wonderful deal. You can lose a bet and still get money. So go to Betway right now. Get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet on Betway loses. You can scan the QR code right there or go to the website and go to the details section to create a new account and redeem your welcome offer. This offer is only available for new customers. It is not available in Ontario. Terms and conditions apply. You must be 18 plus and you must play responsibly. Let's go to my sick pick of the night.
It's time for Sick Picks, brought to you by Betway.
All right, Pierre, I know you hate it when I do this, but I got a 2-team parlay. Just 2 teams, not a lot, just 2. 2-team parlay going right now. I'm going to look right up to where you are, about an hour south, or whatever it is, an hour and 20 minutes, down to the Bell Center in Montreal. The Montreal Canadiens will welcome the Tampa Bay Lightning into the Bell Center. Tampa Bay, as we mentioned earlier in the show, coming off a 5-3 loss in Toronto last night, so the tail end of a back-to-back here. Always tough. And the Montreal Canadiens, as we just discussed with Paul Dupont, are playing some great hockey. I'm liking the Canadiens in this one. I'm liking them on the money line, plus 120 right now. And I'm going to combine that. I'm going to head out west, and I'm going to look at the Washington Capitals are going into Edmonton to play the Connor McDavid-less Edmonton Oilers, who he'll be serving the first game of his suspension tonight. I think they miss him. I think that it mentally affects them a bit. I like the Capitals, who, I know we talk about them a lot here, Pierre, but I mean, just in talking to some fans recently, there's not a lot of buzz around them, and they're a really good team. They are for real right now, and that's why I think they go into Edmonton and they win as underdogs on the money line, plus 130. So a Capitals and Canadiens parlay tonight. Go check it out or do whatever you want over there at Betway. Let's get to our Q&A. All right, Charles, question. This is the second time McDavid has been suspended for cross-checking a player in the head. Now that he has a history, would he get 5+ games if it happens again? Good point by you, Charles.
I think so.
Yeah? I mean,
I think so.
Player's gonna, he should too. So that's the way I look at it. All right, next question. Renaissance Resistor. Question, is Doc the right center for a potential Demidov-Laine duo?
He is if he keeps moving his feet like he is, but I think that they're going to wait and see.
Yeah.
I don't know that they're really prepared to answer that question right now, but Kirby's playing a lot better, and part of it is he's moving his feet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of that is getting more healthy. It's getting more healthy.
Yeah. He's got the confidence back too.
Yeah, you could see that for sure.
All right, next question. Sound the siren. Guys, have you talked about Ryan? You have talked about Ryan Leonard a lot. With the Caps playing exceptional hockey, do you try to insert him into the lineup or wait for the season to play out? Carberry is coaching his tuckus off.
He's going right in the lineup. He's going to play right behind Tommy Wilson or in front of Tommy Wilson, depending on what they want to do. He's going right in the lineup. He's a top 6 winger. He's going to dominate when he gets in the NHL. there's not going to be a big adjustment period for him.
That's going to be such a great addition for them to have as they head into the playoffs. All right, next question. Excuse me. Gregory Debo, will we see Crosby in the playoffs ever again? Yes, but I don't know with who. That's all I'll say.
Oh, my goodness. They've got the schedule still to go on the West Coast. You know, they're in Anaheim, they're in Seattle, they're in San Jose. Yeah, they won in LA last night. Then they got to go into Utah. They got 4 games left in the road. They got to win 3 out of 4. And I just don't know how they're going to do that.
Yeah, and like I pointed, we were talking about it either this morning or yesterday, Pierre, when I was pointing out their schedule there. Interesting, too, how they're not doing that traditional California triangle. They actually have to go up to Seattle and then come back to play San Jose. So tough travel schedule for the Pittsburgh Penguins right now. We'll see how they handle it. All right, next question. Randy Workman, do you think Vegas is regretting the Thompson trade?
Well, you know, I was talking about that earlier today with a hockey decision maker. I said, I can't remember the last time an NHL team had 2 guys that caught the puck with their right hand. They got Lindgren and they got Thompson. Both of them catch with the right hand. So scouting people call them silly siders. I think that fouls up the opposition when you got 2 guys that do that. I really do. Yep. And Thompson's played really well. I don't know if Vegas is regretting it or not, but you look at, he's played really well in Washington. Really well.
For sure. All right, next question. FFFF. Hello, Pierre. Any suggestions to which NHL Russian-speaking player would be a good fit for Montreal to be a Demidov mentor the way George's was Gallagher's mentor? That's a great question there, for sure.
That's a really, really good question. I'd have to think about that because I don't want to shortchange any of the Russian players. I'm going to look around the league. I will have an answer for that tomorrow. I'm going to write it down now. I will definitely. That's a really good question.
Yep. Remind us on that. All right, next question. John Smith, how much of a setback in getting the decision to be a buyer versus seller when you're wrong? Do you guys have a worse example of this?
How much of a setback can getting
if you should have been a seller, but you chose to be a buyer? Let's say I think he means let's say, for example, the Boston Bruins right now, who have to decide, are we sellers or are we buyers?
Toronto's done that, and they've lost in the first round. Where they were buyers and they probably should have been selling.
Yep.
There have been a bunch of teams that have had that. Chicago did it after their 3 cup runs, and 15 was their last one. They did it and it didn't work out. Rangers have done it for a lot of years. That's happened.
Yep.
That's happened a lot.
I'm with you on that. All right, next question. Alex Imanowski, I understand market size, but I just can't see Houston or Atlanta, again, being a good NHL market. Why not go somewhere that actually likes the sport? Milwaukee or KC? Wisconsin loves hockey.
Okay, so just a couple things.
That's why.
If you go to Milwaukee, you got to pay the Chicago Blackhawks. They control the territory, so that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. Atlanta's a TV market number. Same thing with Houston. I don't know how much you're looking at the TV numbers, but they're not good. The TV numbers are not good. Hockey's a very provincial sport. People cheer. We don't have national teams. People cheer for their own team. You know, football, Dallas is America's team. The Green Bay Packers, the New York Giants still have a lot of cachet. Like San Francisco 49ers, they have national teams. The Patriots for the longest time. Hockey really doesn't have that. That's part of the problem.
They did have the Leafs and the Habs, I would say, back in the day, Pierre. I think
not in the United States. Nobody cares.
Oh, not in the United States. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Well, this is what we're talking about.
Yeah. I'm with you on that.
Nobody cares. Trust me.
Were the Rangers ever that way?
The Rangers were always good because they have people who live all over the United States.
Yeah.
So the Rangers are always good. Even Detroit, Hockey Town, all the original 6 teams, Boston, they're all good.
Yeah,
they're all good. But they need TV pop.
It's a TV market. That's all it is, guys. Especially Atlanta. I totally understand where everybody's coming from about questioning that, but like Pierre said, it's TV. All right, next question. Rick T, do you guys think the move away from letting players police themselves in regard to taking liberties with star players such as Gretz McSorley is good or bad for the league?
Well, I've always been a fan of the nuclear deterrent. I learned that term from Brian Burke when I worked with him. I think you have to have that. It doesn't mean you have a guy that just can only fight. You got to have a guy that's a deterrent.
Yep.
And I think people have less regard nowadays just because, for whatever reason, they're not afraid. They're not afraid of anything. They just go run around.
Yep, I agree. All right, next question. Renaissance Resistor, will the potential tariff issues, continued devaluation of the Canadian dollar put Canadian NHL teams in jeopardy, especially Winnipeg? Thanks. Yes and yes.
We've been talking about this for a long time. And the Canadian dollar is an issue. And I know the league doesn't want to talk. I don't blame them. Look at when I got in the NHL, it was a $500 million a year business. Now it's a $6.2 billion a year business. You cannot fault the NHL for anything they've done. They've done a lot of things right.
Yep.
They can't control the currency of a country. They can't. As much as they'd like to control it, they can't. The Canadian currency is an issue, but it's more than that. It's taxation issues in Canada. Taxation issues in Canada are a big problem. Big problem for players.
Yeah, it's not good right now for sure. All right, next question. Ron LaRoque, do you think the Habs became too comfortable with winning when it came to the games on the weekend? They played more run and gun after a 3-goal lead with Toronto and back and forth with the Rangers.
Hey, Ronnie, I'm going to just tell you right now, if Christian Dvorak scores to make it 4-0 when he rifled one off the post, that game is over. Montreal wins going away, but it rifles it off the post, and then Bobby McMahon creates a 2-on-1. They come down and score. I don't think they paid footloose and fancy free. I just think that Toronto played really well. Toronto got urgent. When you see Austin Matthews jumping through the gym like he was at points of that game on Saturday, he and Marner, watch last night's game with Tampa. Yeah. He, Marner, and Nyes just took the game over. They did the same thing in Montreal.
Yep. All right, next question. Randy Workman, I am just wondering about teams taking a gamble on these 7-year contracts on players at 30 or more, maybe shorter-term contracts on these vets, or am I wrong? No, you're absolutely right, Randy.
Randy.
And enough of the no-movement clauses.
Randy Workman, voice of reason.
Yes, totally agree. All right, next question. Marty McFly, great name. This is from Twitter. I just saw it. Thanks for putting this up, guys. I can't remember a game this year when a team played desperate hockey. Is it because they don't have – he's talking about the Bruins, by the way. Is it because they don't have the talent, or is it due to too many players not showing up on a nightly basis? Marty, I've got a few games off the top of my – I think they have played some desperate hockey in some games. The one I would say would be the Centennial game against Montreal. I thought there was a lot – now, Montreal was not playing the hockey they are now, so I don't know how it would go now, but – there was a lot of urgency in that game. There's been a few others. There was one against Toronto earlier in the year. There was one
in Tampa. One in
Tampa, and the one in Florida when they made that comeback.
Yeah. I mean, they've played some urgent hockey.
Yeah. Overall,
but do they measure up? Honestly, do you take that roster on paper?
They're a mediocre team, like Kevin said.
A little bit, just a tinge better than mediocre. Because I think mediocre teams don't make the playoffs.
Yep.
So I think they're just a little better, not a lot better. Where they miscalculated was in free agency. And Paul Dupont nailed that, and we didn't put it on a platter for him. He decided to say that.
Yeah.
All the things that you and I talked about last summer, our podcast was on once a week, every week during the entire summer on Wednesdays. And as soon as that deal went down, we're like, no way.
Nope. Remember being in Vegas for it. All right, next question. Postnet on 130. Would Toronto get a second franchise?
Depends if the Leafs would approve it. Buffalo might be part of the equation in terms of talking about it. Where would it be? I think it'd probably be obviously north of the 401. There was a lot of talk when I was around the league that they were thinking about it. I knew some people industrialists that had the wherewithal to pull it off. I just don't know if they're still interested or not. I just don't know.
All right, next question. Bert L., could you explain the exchanging of information between media agents and management? Are one-for-one deals made where an agent provides inside info in exchange for a later favor from the media? No comment.
You're in the media. Why don't you say something?
I don't want to get in trouble with anybody. I don't know. Yes.
Well, you call. Okay, so I'm going to do it for you.
Okay.
Hardworking media people cultivate sources. They do. They work hard to cultivate those sources, and they're loyal to those sources.
Yep.
They are. sometimes they have to write stuff the source might not like. But, if you treat them properly and with respect, eventually that source will come back to you, potentially. But I also know that some guys have played the game a different way.
Yeah, that's why I kind of wanted to step back. That part of the game is something, and I vent to it privately about Pierre a lot. It's just something I don't like the direction of it right now, but maybe another day we'll get into it. All right, next question. Gregory Debo, what surprise teams become buyers at the deadline?
I think Ottawa. I'm going to say it
Montreal.
fast. I think Ottawa. I don't agree on Montreal.
Okay.
I think Ottawa. Doesn't mean that I'm right, but Ottawa's right there. They can taste it.
Yeah. And Mark's getting healthier. Yep.
They taste it. I'm just telling you. And then in the West, I wouldn't be surprised to see a team like Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have their owner on tomorrow, Mr. Craig Leopold.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Minnesota because their team's hard to play against. When they're healthy, they are hard, and they are as well. I can say this with confidence, Jimmy. Minnesota, who are having their scouting meetings down south as we talk right now, they're as well coached as any team in the league. The Minnesota Wild, they're as well coached as any team in the league.
Here's one team I keep an eye on, Pierre, and I don't know if you agree with me, but just because of how gung-ho the owner is right now and that they're still only 4 points out of a playoff spot and they've got tons of picks and prospects, the Utah Hockey Club. That's one team.
I don't have a problem with you saying that at all.
Okay.
I think that's a really good point. The one caveat to all that, they got to get winning here. It can't be 2 up, 3 down.
Yep.
1 up, 3 down. You got to go on like a 5-6 game heater to
into
just
the formations. They need consistency.
To maintain traction, because what's going on in the West, there's a separation happening.
Yeah, it's not
Calgary's hanging in there. It's totally different than the East. Calgary's hanging in there. Vancouver's hanging in there. You got to think Vancouver, Jimmy, at some point is going to wake up from this malaise. Yeah. And if they don't, then Utah's in there. But I with Rick there, I think with Tocchet there, I think they will. I do.
All right. Next question. Ron LaRoque, what should we be watching for in the Tampa-Montreal game tonight?
Fatigue factor for Tampa. If they don't have a good start, I think Montreal will jump them quick. I expect Montreal to tighten it up a little bit defensively. And I think Montembeault goes back in net, and I think he'll play a good game.
Yeah, I was just looking that up. Yeah, he is confirmed the starter. And Vasilevsky probably for Tampa as well because he didn't play last night. All right, next question. FFFF. Any chance during the Four Nations Cup they do what Pierre was thinking of, putting a referee in the stands, and that he has the last word on close calls?
That won't happen now, but I got to think at some point they're going to try it in the exhibition season. It's the only, everybody says, how do we make it better? And to the league's credit, they're always looking to make it better. They are. I give them full marks on that. That's one way they can help make it better. And I think they'll eventually try it in the exhibition season. I do. I really believe that.
All right. Next question. Ron LaRoque. Pierre, by the way, sorry to see him pass away. Dan McCourt, longtime NHL linesman. I actually was.
I knew Danny really well.
Just Dave Jackson earlier about him. Said he was a great guy.
Dano was an amazing guy. You could yell at him and he would never get mad at you. He'd always come over and explain himself. He had huge credibility with the players because you knew what you were going to get. He was a lot like Kevin Collins, very similar as that they had a lot of honor. They treated players with respect. They didn't yell and scream at them. When they had to tell guys they were wrong, they would do it. Both of them were very similar. I'm very sorry to hear that. Very, very sorry.
I did not know him, but I've heard nothing but good things today.
And his brother was, as you know, an amazing player. Dale McCourt was an amazing player.
All right.
That's a sad one to end today. Dano was a hot ticket. He was a really good man. Really good man. I had a lot of really fun visits with him over the years. So.
Well, rest in peace and our condolences to him, to his family. All right, next question. And I think this is it. Brad K, is there a better chance of the Sabres making the playoffs against the Chiefs in the
Hey,
playoffs.
Brad, thanks for making me laugh there because I was getting a little emotional. So I appreciate you making me laugh. That was good coming out of the
Bills.
Yeah, so if I say that, then I'm gonna get. I'm not picking anybody in football. My team,
Okay, you don't have to. I'm picking.
my team is the New York Giants, and we're no good. And I'll tell you one thing right now, based on what I saw Sunday from Saquon Barkley, the management team and the coaching staff with the New York Giants need to be reevaluated by ownership.
Yeah.
Okay, just telling you, he embarrassed them.
Yep. Pierre, Dupes earlier mentioned the Joe Thornton trade, and we all know what Joe did right after that trade.
You know where I stood on that. You know where I stood.
I would liken Barkley to that. That's how bad it was to let him go like
but
that.
At least Boston got 3 players. They got Stewart, they got Primo, they got Stern.
Yeah.
No, but at least they got 3 players. The Giants got nothing.
Yeah. So anyhow, I will go on record. I'm saying it. Bills pull the upset. They get it done.
I'm not going there. So Jimmy Murphy said that.
And Ron LaRocca, that's it for our questions, but I appreciate Ron LaRocca down there. Sorry about the Irish, Jimmy. Tough one. Yes. Pierre was You know what, though? The better team won, hands down. They are that Ohio State team could beat some NFL teams. I really think they are that good. They just that was tough, but it is what it is. It was a great season. I don't think anyone after Northern Illinois lost thought that they would be playing last night for the national title. So good on them to make it that far.
So you have to admit, Coach Freeman's legit. Like he's brought standards, organization, passion, and professionalism to that franchise. He has done an outstanding job. Outstanding job.
Total class. All right. Well, thank you. I want to thank Paul Dupont for joining us here on the Eye Test today. He was great as always. Hall of Fame Puck Scribe. Love talking to Kevin. Thank our folks up at the Sick Podcast Studios in Montreal for working the boards. Thanks to you in the Q&A section for all your questions.
Post game tonight, Marinero, McGuire, and a special guest, Maxime Lapierre tonight.
Ooh, have fun, Pierre. There you go.
We always do. I love working with Max. Right. Max is awesome.
There you go. So that is right after the Lightning Canadiens game. Everyone out there, enjoy that. Enjoy all the hockey tonight. We'll talk to you tomorrow, and we will welcome on Minnesota Wild owner Craig Leopold here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.